everybody, welcome back to another episode of Can Revv Do, where I take my trusty Revv Gen 100R amp in combination with the built-in 2 Notes Torpedo remote software, and I pair it up and try to come close to getting in the ballpark of some classic tones. So far, I've taken a look at some Mark Knopfler, some Yngwie Malmsteen, some Eric Johnson in this series, and I thought a really fun one to do next would be one of my biggest influences and one of my favorite guitar players when I was growing up learning to play, and that is the amazing Alex Lifeson from the fellow Canadian band Rush. Now, you could say that Alex has quite a number of different tones that span his incredible career, but one of my all-time favorites was his guitar solo on the classic Limelight from their Moving Pictures album. So I thought this would be fun to see if we can get a tone that's somewhere in that ballpark. Now, let me just give the standard disclaimer again. I am not trying to recreate these tones. I'm not using the same gear. I have different guitars, different hands, different brain, different amp. I'm sure the information is out there as to the equipment that the original players were using. I obviously don't have that equipment right here, so I'm making do with the Revv amp and whatever DynIR from the folks at 2 Notes that will get us in that ballpark. So again, it seems like there's always somebody who has to come on and try to act as if they know more than everybody else and say that didn't sound like the album or that didn't sound like the tone, when I've already made that disclaimer in the video. It's going to be impossible to recreate these tones, so just spare me those comments. They get a little bit annoying after a while. So again, just to clarify, because some people don't seem to understand, these are trying to get in that ballpark of what would work if we were performing these songs, or if we just want a new tone that we could use that maybe will spark some inspiration for composing some music of our own. So I hope that this tone works out for you. First of all, we're going to take a look at which DynIR we used for this, the settings on the Revv amp, then we'll jump into Torpedo remote and put the final touches on it. You already heard me use a little tiny snippet of this tone in the intro, where I did actually perform the Limelight solo, and you'll hear the entire version a little bit later in this video. So let's get to it. So the DynIR that I actually used for this was from the Dave Friedman collection of exclusive to 2 Notes DynIR virtual cabinets. And these were recorded at Sunset Sound Studios. I used a different one from this collection for one of the other videos in this series, but the one I'm using today is the Friedman 412 Vintage 6402. And it says the Friedman Vintage 6402 is a faithful capture of the iconic naked cabinet that has been a mainstay in Dave Friedman's workshop since the very beginning, acquired from the backline of a Sevy's Laurel Canyon rock and roll legend. For what it's worth, it has no Tolex, so the bare wood resonates more musically and allows your amp to sing. The cabinet is loaded with a quartet of early 90s greenback speakers. These rare 6402 cone speakers are often considered to have a smoother tone than Celestion's current greenback speakers. That's one of the reasons I went with this. I wanted to get a little bit more smoothness. Again, I didn't choose this for any other reason than simply I liked the sound of it after flipping through a few different IRs. Now off we go to the amp settings. So you'll notice that I'm on channel 3 on the Revv Gen 100R on its lowest aggression setting. My gain is all the way up around 3 o'clock. My level control is around noon. Treble is fairly high, up maybe around 3:30, 4 o'clock. Mids are cranked right all the way up, and bass is at around 9 o'clock. I'm using Master 1, which is up around 10, 10:30 maybe, and Presence and Depth are both cranked up to around 3 o'clock. So that's the settings we're using on the amp. Now, if we come over to Torpedo remote software here, we can see that I am using a Ribbon 121 mic on axis, 0%, right up on the grill cloth again. I believe another tone I did in this series was very similar, but it just worked, so I didn't feel like I needed to move that around at all. The twin tracker is off, but I am using all these post effects features, the EQ, the enhancer, and the reverb. So starting with the reverb, we have a chamber reverb set to the ambience mode. I have the dry wet setting set to 45%. The size is at 100%. Echo is at 50%. Color is at 83%, and width is at 50%. Something to keep in mind, Alex also has some delay on this tone, and he's also got some modulation effects, maybe some chorus and flange going on. I didn't put that in, obviously, because we don't have that built into the actual amp, so we have no ability to do that, but it's something that you could add, obviously, after the fact to tweak this even closer to getting to, maybe closer to exactly what Alex had going on the solo. But in the video that you heard at the beginning and the performance video I'm going to show later, I did add just a little dab of delay in the mix and panned it out to one side, which I think is what's going on in the original, from what I could hear anyways. So the enhancer is set to a 50-50 dry-wet split perfectly. Body is on 0%, thickness at 25%, brilliance at 14%. And I have the EQ set to the guitar setting. The 120 hertz setting is set at minus 2 dB. 360 hertz is minus 4 dB. 800 hertz is plus 7 dB. 2 kilohertz is minus 5 dB, and 6 kilohertz is minus 3 dB. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn all of these off so there's no post effects at the moment, and we'll go with just the sound of those amp settings I showed you along with this Friedman 412 Vintage 6402 cabinet, and it sounds like this. Obviously very dry and in your face. We don't have all of the effects that we need to get that sounding even close. So now let's go over to our EQ. Here was the tone originally. Bring that EQ in, and I think this makes a big step towards getting it closer. Then we're going to bring the enhancer in. So without the enhancer or EQ, this is what we had. And with. All right, and then the final piece of this puzzle is the reverb, and here's what we have with that. It's very big verb, but makes it sit nicely in the mix. Kind of hear how big that reverb is. Sorry for the sometimes sloppy playing. So that's the final tone, and I was really liking the way this sounded, even if we're not playing the Limelight solo on it. It's a really nice tone to mess with. I think some delay on that would be really, really beautiful. All right, so there you have how the tone was made, all the settings. If you have the same gear, please give it a try. Obviously, my guitar is going to make it sound different. The way I play is going to make it sound different. But it's a good starting point, and I think it's going to be in that ballpark if you want to use it. But definitely add maybe some chorus or flange, some delay to that, and it's going to be quite nice. Now, how does that sound with just a touch of delay in the mix for the real actual Limelight solo? Here it is. All right, what did you guys think? I hope you thought that that was somewhere in the ballpark. Obviously, it's not exact because we're missing the modulation and whatnot. And as I already mentioned, I'm not claiming that it's a recreation. It cannot be. I'm using completely different gear. But I think it's a really cool tone that will get you in that ballpark. And I hope you enjoy it if you can get something similar out of your rig. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please like the video, share it with anybody who you think would get some enjoyment out of watching it. Also, please subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I'll be back really soon with some more. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Ciao for now.